Okay, I think I'm live. If anyone is watching and can hear me, just raise your hand in the chat or say something just so that I know that all things are ready and we'll get started pretty soon here. I'm gonna wait a minute early. Hopefully that's enough time to troubleshoot any potential problems here. Yes, awesome. Hi, Luke. Sweet. Thank you so much. Cool. Thank you, Brad. Awesome. And there is a slight delay with the stream. So just keep in mind that I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat, and there might be a little bit of a delay to respond to that. So let's get started here. All right. So I'm going to give a brief overview before we dive into it. That way, give a few minutes for anyone that's still logging in and finding the link. But anyways, my name is Bo. I'm here today to go through the latest SK8CAD update. If you're here, you probably know what SK8CAD is. But if you're new, SK8CAD is skateboard design software that allows you to create custom skateboard and longboard shapes, even other board type shapes, and download the models of either the board or the mold so that you can make these. And I just released about a week or two ago a new update to the tool with a bunch of new features. So I had a little video that I put out last week, I think it was last week, going through what those new features are. And I wanted to walk through them in a little bit more detail today and give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions. So with that, I'm going to start here. So when you log in to, or when you show up at SK8CAD.com, that is the URL, SK8CAD.com, you're often prompted with just like the latest news here. So here's the little video that covers the updates. Again, I'm going to try not to repeat too much of what's in that video. And you can see all the updates just right here. And close window. Also, I just want to thank the Patreon supporters that have contributed to supporting this tool, and also the user plan members. All of your support makes this tool possible, so thank you so much for being a supporter. And I'm just going to run through all the things right now. So first thing on the list here is advanced mode. I showed a little bit of this in the video. There is this button right here that when you turns on advanced mode. And what that does is it shows a whole bunch of parameters. So let me turn it off for a second. With it off, you can see there are 2 display parameters, 4 mold spec parameters, 3 for print sections, and then a handful of deck shape parameters, and whether or not you want concave in the kicks and the shape controls. The point of this advanced mode is to basically take all of the parameters away for basic use, because most users, it seems like, really aren't playing around with all those parameters, and they can be pretty overwhelming. If I turn on advanced mode, this turns on those more nuanced parameters that are a little bit trickier to understand, so you can see that all of a sudden we now have way more details and things to control. And it can be a little more confusing, but it gives you way more creative freedom. So there's no pressure to use advanced mode. It is just an optional feature if you want that additional customization now. The next thing on the list here is some of the UI improvements. So the UI stands for user interface, so that's what you get to see. First thing, a nose indicator. There you go. There's a little arrow now that reminds you of what direction your board is facing. This does not get downloaded with your model. It's purely visual. So if you want, you could just leave it on the whole time. This is helpful if you're designing popsicle boards because it can be tricky to remember which side is the nose and tail. There's also standard views. So we have top view, a side view, and an isometric view. So these put the view camera in the same position every time so that you have a consistent viewing angle. I know this is super helpful for me when I want to see the perfect side view or the perfect top view when I'm either designing like the angles of things for the side view or the shape of the board with the top view. Next, we have progressive kicks. I think I'm actually going to come back to that one because we might get into some more details there. I'm going to go through the easier ones first. Custom truck hole pattern and custom board thickness. So, in order to access those parameters, you need to be using advanced mode. So switch that on. And if we scroll down to the mold specs, we can see that there is a truck hole length and a truck hole width. This refers to the pattern of the trucks. So if you are designing, for example, a old school board and you want to use the old school bolt hole pattern, which is 2.5 inches between the truck holes along the length, you can now set that and it'll regenerate the model with that accounted for. So there you can see it's maybe not the best example because that looks pretty similar to what it was, but this is now 2.5 inches across. The other parameter that I mentioned was the deck thickness, and that is down here in the board parameters. By default, it's 7/16 of an inch. I know a lot of builders actually make boards that are a little bit thinner than that, but you can do all sorts of, different numbers here. For example, if you're making maybe like a thinner board and you wanted to see what it looks like, maybe you're doing a composite layup, maybe you are going to print out a router template for using with a router table so that you can more quickly shape your boards. You may want a thicker or a thinner board. So there we go. That's 1/4 of an inch thick, that board right there. So that's really nice to have and really convenient. And a really cool thing that this allows now is you could actually design fingerboards. So you can do all the stuff for building your own custom fingerboards in this because you can set the custom truck hole pattern and the board thickness. So the key with fingerboards is to pretend all these units that say inches don't exist. So pretend everything's actually in centimeters, and then this actually works out pretty good. That might be pretty confusing, so I did throw a new example shape up. You can see if you scroll down, there is a fingerboard shape. And when you click on that, it will regenerate a fingerboard. So there it is. This is like your maybe typical fingerboard shape. So you can use that as a starting point and go from there. If you are kind of confused by all this, there are example shapes like I mentioned, but a new feature I just added is the shape library. So if you scroll down, you can see shape library. The shape library is a collection. It's going to be a constantly growing collection of pre-designed shapes. So right now, I only have 25 in there, and I'm planning to add quite a few on a very regular basis, and it's all going to be filterable as well. So you'll be able to sort by whether you want a shape board, a popsicle board, if you're looking for a fingerboard. Maybe you're looking for things that aren't skateboards, and you want to see something like a skim board, or something like that. So there's all these shapes. Everyone has access to this shape library key, which is so you can see what's available in the shape library. However, you can only download the files if you join the Lite user plan. So we have this memberships tab right up here, and there are a few plans. SK8CAD is free to use for basic use. And then if you want access to some of the more time-saving features like the shape library, you can become a light member for just $9 a month. And then there's also a pro and a supplier membership, which include more advanced features and benefits that more suit pro builders. So a pro builder would be someone that's really making this their business and making a bunch of boards. They need the professional features and they want to stand out on the maker map, which I'll point out in a minute. And then supplier, they're going to stand out on the maker map as well, and they can get things like custom SK8CAD integrations on their website. So if you want to actually have SK8CAD live on your website and have your customers be able to order boards or molds from SK8CAD, you can get those benefits with a supplier account. And lastly, if you're an educator, we do offer a class option for the light plan. So you can get a bunch of light plans, essentially unlimited light plans for your classes with the benefits of getting the shape library. And the other new benefit, which is saving and loading. Promise I'm coming back to progressive kicks in a minute, but saving and loading is really cool because previously you would just have to export a CSV. That would be the only way you could really save your design or get a snapshot of your design. Super inconvenient because you would have to go back and manually input all these parameters, and especially now with the addition of there's probably 15 or 20 new parameters. That's going to be kind of time consuming and annoying. So what we've done is added a save and load feature if you are on the light plan. So you can see there's a little save button here. So if I wanted to make a custom surf skate, I can look at the example shape for the surf skate. And this is a little bit slow while I am streaming, unfortunately. And I probably picked one of the longest designs to load, but there's the surf skate. So I can see, okay, there's a surf skate. I want, I look at these specs, I'm like, I actually want a surf skate that's 10.5 inches wide. So let me change that. And I want the wheelbase to maybe be a little bit smaller, so I'm going to make it 17.75 and see what that does for us. And maybe just make the nose length a little bit longer as well. So let's say I see the default surf skate, but I want to tweak a few things to really make it my own board. And I could export the CSV file, but it would be way easier to just save the file. I'm like, all right, that looks sweet. Let me capture that. I'm going to save it here. So what that does, you can see it downloads my file. I didn't change the file name, so it just saved as the default surf skate. And then the cool thing you can do is that saved locally to my computer, which is really nice. And then it also saves into your current session. So you can see over here, I have the default surf skate file I just saved loaded right there. So if I wanted to reload that design, let's actually look at the shape library. So if you don't have light plan access, this window will just look a little different. You won't see these buttons. Shape library, there we go. I downloaded all of these, or I have all these showing now. I want to check out let me look at the skim board. Maybe I want to try and make a skim board. So I just clicked on the skim board, and there is the skim board. And you can see all the parameters over here have adjusted. So I can customize the skim board. And let's say, oh shoot, I want to go back actually to that surf skate. I can either load in the design from my computer and just grab that file I just downloaded, or if I'm still in the same session, I can click on default surf skate, and it'll reload again with that 10.5 with the 17.75 wheelbase and the slightly longer nose length. And so this is going to help save a lot of time if you are using this, more as a business or even as a hobbyist that is doing this a bit more seriously and coming in here. So I hope that is a helpful feature. And again, you can get that by joining the light plan. or becoming a Patreon level 2 supporter or higher, or the pro or supplier plan, of course. So those are the benefits for those new plans, that new plan. And then progressive kicks. Okay, this is going to be the last thing before I open it up for some Q&A. Progressive kicks are, I describe them, but I'm going to go into another program here to do some sketching so you can better get an idea of what this is. First, if you did not see my video last week, I talk about progressive kicks in a quick 2-minute video about kick style. So watch that either after this video so you understand progressive kicks better, because I don't want to repeat myself here. I did say I just got a question. Is it possible to introduce a rocker into a street deck? That is not currently possible just yet in SK8CAD. You can do rocker with a board without kicks, but I don't know that it's possible to do it in a street deck yet. I'm going to play around with it and see if I can make it work, but that is a feature request we have pending in the next release of features. So right now it's not currently a feature, but it is something we hope to introduce in the future. Progressive kicks now. I have this orange line right here, and this orange line represents what a progressive kick is shaped like and how it actually works in SK8CAD. There are 3 parameters for designing progressive kicks in SK8CAD. The first one is the ultimate kick angle, the ultimate angle at the nose or the tail. The ultimate angle refers to how steep the mold gets at the very end of the mold. So progressive kick doesn't have just a straight angle anywhere, it just progressively gets steeper, steeper, and steeper. And you can see on this orange line, there's this thin little blue line right here. That is your ultimate angle, and you can see it represents the angle that if the end of the board went straight, that would be the angle it ended at. And this applies to the mold of your board. So this is the ultimate angle at the mold, the end of your mold at that end. The steeper this angle, the more bowl-like the board will be. So it'll be way more rounded, and the shallower this angle, the more like an angled kick it will look. So you can see as I make this angle super shallow, it's almost an angled kick, and if I make it really, really steep, it's like super mellow and then gets really steep at the end. So that is what the ultimate angle represents. The second parameter is the nose and tail height. This refers to the height of the board away from the ground at the end, again, at the end of the mold, not the end of the board. However, I know that it's way more convenient to see what the height of your kick is off the ground when you actually have a board in front of you. So you can see in SK8CAD, I did add in that parameter. So you can see there is that's actually not a good example because I had the Surfskate open, but let me open up the progressive street deck. So you can see that I have, if I have this set where it's 2.5 inches of nose height at the end of the mold at the nose, that is about 1.99 inches at the nose of your board, not the nose of the end of your mold. Sorry, I know it was very rambly, but basically that 1.99 is going to be the dimension you measure if you're looking at an actual board. And one thing to keep in mind is this does not take into account any spring back, so you might see like maybe a millimeter, like 1 to 3 millimeters of spring back, maybe even a little bit more, depending on what kind of glue you're using, what kind of wood you're using, and your press times. So that is the nose height. And then the third parameter is the control point length, the control point. So as if the first two weren't already confusing, the control point is even more bizarre in that it refers to the length of this little node right here and how far out this little node goes. So the longer the control point is, the flatter the board is at the beginning of the kick, and the smaller it is, the sharper it can be. And generally keep this pretty tight, and it's good to use the shape library or that example street deck to kind of get a feel for what some appropriate values are. Generally this control point is between like 0.05 inches and like 0.2, 0.3 inches, 0.4 inches. It's usually not a very big number. If you go really, really, really tight, you can create a really tight crease in your board. And yeah, these are really interesting to play around with. You can't just make these whatever you want because it will break the model in SK8CAD. So you might see some issues. For example, if you make something unrealistic, and I haven't updated the error codes just yet, but let's say we've got our progressive street deck in right now that's loaded. If I make the ultimate angle too low, it won't work. And if I make the control point too large, it won't work. So if I tried to make this control point right now 0.5, it'll probably break the model and create something that really isn't very usable, because again, if I make this too far out, you get a really weird shape that kind of happens here that is no good for skateboarding. It's like a weird kinked reversed shape thing. So I know that can be a little confusing. Oh, that actually worked, but I wasn't expecting that to work, but you can see it's a little bit more bowl-like now at the front there. So just keep that in mind if you're designing progressive kicks. Again, these are more advanced parameters, and I highly recommend using the shape library as reference points for designing this. And there is a resolution parameter right here that will basically help remove any bugs. If you're seeing a bug in the model and it looks like it should work okay, try changing that number. Sometimes that helps. And then there is also the ability to include concave in the kicks with progressive kicks, and you can see all those parameters here. You can change the they all refer to the spec at the edge of the mold, while these ones, the original ones, refer to the spec at the center of the mold. And this is all, I know this is hard to remember probably. If you go to help and you click on the user guide, and you go down to kick concave, all this is mentioned down here, and there is a diagram also for the progressive kicks example, so you can see where all these parameters come from. But it's going to take some tweaking and playing around, of course. Likewise, I am going to have some specific spec videos about these parameters. I'm working my way through the parameters in SK8CAD. I've done about 6 or 7 videos so far on YouTube. I'm keeping them brief, only like 2 minutes each, so that they're quick and easy and very basic. And they're all linked to in the help guides. We've got the user guide. The tutorials are these longer SK8CAD live streams. The spec explainers are those short videos just about a specific spec. We've got the virtual board build workshop, which is my virtual video class on how to make boards, just actually building boards, not so much on the digital side, but more on the fabrication side. The forum, please go there if you have questions about using the tool. If you are a light plan subscriber or Patreon subscriber or pro or supplier, you do get direct support included, but if you are a free user, please use the forum to contact users and myself about any questions with the software. And I think that is going to wrap up most of what I wanted to quickly talk about. Oh, the maker map. So I did a release in September and I never did a live stream for it. And we had people be like, what is the maker map? So when you create an account in SK8CAD, which you need to do if you want to download any of the files, you are asked to create a profile. And this profile is optional. You can leave everything blank and click update if you really prefer not to share any information. But the benefit of having this profile is that you can let people know you exist if you are building business or if you just want to connect with other hobbyists and makers in your area. So you can enter in your name. This could be your personal name, your business name. You can link to your website, or if you just are doing stuff like on Instagram or social media, you can link to your social media. Just make sure you include the HTTPS part, otherwise it won't let you upload a website. And then you can mark your location. Just hit set, it'll pull up a map, you drop a pin on the map, click OK and confirm, and then update everything. So just keep in mind, this will be public, so if you don't well, first of all, the location isn't super precise, so it'll probably be, because it only goes to 3 decimal points, so it won't be like the exact location, it'll just give you a rough area. And yeah, just keep in mind it's public, and if you go to Maker Map, you can see where people are in your area. So these are the people that have chosen to make their profile public and drop a pin on the Maker Map, and this refers to just everyone that is public that is using the tool. This is not everyone that is using the tool. We have about twice as many people on here right now. Or there's a lot more people on here on SK8CAD than what is shown on the Maker Map. So we've got all these people. If you are a pro, you can see that you stand out and you can get boards from the pros, suppliers. You get a couple other benefits. You can link to more socials. You can get analytics information, and then you could just hover over people and see where they're at if they have a website linked, anything like that. So that is a little helpful tool to connect with other makers in your area. So really fun social piece, and we're hoping to make some more updates with this pretty soon and give you guys some more capabilities to connect and share what you're working on. So that is the Maker Map. And now, I think that is it now. So I'd like to see if you guys have any questions. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat here, and I'll do my best to answer them. Again, any support that you are willing to provide for the tool would be awesome, because this does take a bit of effort to develop and maintain, and there's multiple ways to support the tool. You can join on Patreon and get access to the behind-the-scenes stuff like early feature testing. You can vote on what features we work on next, and I post little articles there every now and then with just some little tips about how to make the most of SK8CAD. And if you don't want to join on Patreon, but you want some of these other benefits like the shape library or the ability to load and save, or maybe you want to actually install SK8CAD on your website, your e-commerce site, you want to attract new business, maybe check out those other memberships. Again, those plans are right here. You can go ahead and check them out. Let me know if you have any questions. And that is pretty much it. All right. Is it possible to make slices through a mold as if I was to cut it from slices of plywood or timber sections stacked together, for example? Yes. So this actually is possible, and I will be creating a tutorial soon on how to do this. I had a customer actually recently let me know that he found a way to do it using FreeCAD. And it took some playing around, but he had a process that worked out, and he actually hand shaped a mold using a custom design he generated from SK8CAD. Super cool. I want to get some more information from him. I also recently spoke to an educator that used another program. I think it's called Kirimoto, Kiri, and then a colon, and then Moto. And I've never used that before, but apparently he was able to slice it up into sections and then laser cut a mold. So check out FreeCAD and Kirimoto. I will work on getting a tutorial up sometime in the near future about how to do that. It's not possible currently directly in SK8CAD, but I think the tools exist with other platforms. And if there's enough demand from other makers, I can look into making that a feature. So it's a great question, and it is possible. It has been done. I just need to figure out how they are doing it. Okay, next question I've got here. Do you have a programming background? I'm fascinated with the JSCAD stuff. Wondering what it takes to make similar things. Great work. Thank you so much, Luke. My formal background is in mechanical engineering. I did some coding in college, and then I largely I did a little bit more coding after college. Most of that was in, we did some MATLAB stuff in college, which is like computational stuff, and then Arduino, which is like robotics coding. And I was really involved with that. And then around 2016, I stumbled across JSCAD, and that is what sparked my learning of JavaScript and web development. So that is my background. This is my experience with programming, I think, pretty much. So I've done a lot of web development also for the business. So mostly self-taught, but I love coding. It is kind of like an intellectual version of skateboarding. You can just iterate super fast, and it's super fun. All right, next question here. And then, wondering what it takes to make similar things. Yeah, it just takes dedication and patience and persistence. So if you've got the curiosity and patience to deal with it, then it's a fun, coding is super fun to build projects with. So you just got to start doing it, and yeah, there's a lot of helpful resources on the internet for how to code. All right, how often do I add to the shape library? Right now, I created this all about 2 weeks ago and made it public, and I launched 25 shapes. I plan on doing at least 5 to 10 new shapes a month for at least like the next year. That might vary. I may release a whole lot more shapes at some point, and if I do that, I'll probably release a little bit less shapes in the next iteration. I don't have a regular schedule yet, but I'm ballparking at least 5 to 10 every month. And you will be able to see how many shapes get added, because if you click on Shape Library, and there's links to it all over the place, you can simply scroll through, and this will represent what is currently available in the library. So we'll be adding a bunch more, and this is going to change. I am working with some user experience designers to help improve the layout here, and I should thank them. They have been an immense help with this project. So we're going to make this way prettier and easier to work with. We're going to have it filterable, all that good stuff. So this was really just quickly whipped up, and it just shows 2 images, side view, top view, and the name of the board. We're going to have descriptions and filters to make it easier going forward. Cool. Looks like that is most of the questions. I don't think I missed anything here. Yeah, awesome. Give it a few more minutes if there's any more questions. And thank you all so much for tuning in. Awesome. I'm glad this tool is helpful. Yeah, I'm going to have a lot more features coming up soon, and I really want to help a lot of makers, build boards. I know there are some challenges that a lot of makers are facing, and I'm trying to help lower the barrier to entry for this and help you guys have more sustainable businesses if you want to turn this into a business. So thanks for your support. If you don't need any of the added benefits, another awesome way you can support the tool is simply by just sharing it with other people. Spreading word will be immensely helpful, and just sharing it with a friend, sharing it with somebody you think might be interested, that would all be awesome and super helpful, because I think the more people that are using this tool, the better it is for the community, and we can do a lot more interesting things with it and make it way more powerful in the future. So I'm going to close out here. Thank you all again so much for watching. Stay tuned on the YouTube channel for some new spec explainer videos in the coming weeks. And have a great rest of your weekend. Take care.